Stop. Don't sell that.
A pawn shop on Jefferson Avenue. An old Navy SEAL slid his Purple Heart across the glass, hands trembling, soaking wet, hungry.
$40.
The old man hesitated, but hunger won.
Deal.
No. No deal.
Henry Griffin stepped forward. 26, black, Marine reservist.
Give him the 40.
Give him back that medal. He's not selling it today.
Son, I don't need your... Sir.
I saw the trident on your wrist. That medal stays with you.
Henry walked out, broke, for a stranger he'd never met. But from the moment those bills hit the counter, everything about his life was about to change. He just didn't know it yet. But to understand why Henry Griffin gave away his last dollar for a stranger, you need to understand the life he was already carrying. Let me take you back to that same morning. 6 hours before the pawn shop, 5:14 a.m., Norfolk, Virginia. The alarm buzzed on a cracked phone screen. Henry's hand found it in the dark. First try. Military habit, he never needed a second ring. He sat up on the edge of a twin mattress in a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. The place was small, clean though, organized with a precision that didn't match the peeling wallpaper or the water stain on the ceiling. Everything Henry owned had a place. His work boots, by the door. His Marine dress uniform, hanging in plastic behind the closet door, pressed and perfect. A single framed photograph on the shelf. His mother, Vanessa, in her Navy nurse uniform. She'd died when he was 9. Car accident on a rainy highway. Not combat, just life. Next to the photo, a folded American flag. The one they gave his grandmother at the funeral. Henry stood, stretched, his back popped twice. 26 years old with the joints of a man twice his age. 2 jobs will do that to you. He walked to the next room and cracked the door. His grandmother, Loretta Griffin, was still asleep. 69, diabetic, on a fixed income that didn't fix much. Her insulin kit sat on the nightstand. The medical bills sat in a neat stack on the kitchen counter, right next to the past due notices for rent and his truck payment. Henry picked up the bills, flipped through them the way some people flip through bad news they already know by heart. Rent, due in 6 days. Loretta's prescription refill, 4 days. Truck payment, already past due. He pulled out his phone, opened his banking app, stared at the number. $38.12. He'd checked it twice before bed. Checking again didn't change anything, but he checked anyway. That's what broke people do. They count what they don't have over and over, hoping the math will be different. It never is. He put the phone down, poured coffee into a thermos, opened the cabinet, 1 box of cereal left. Enough for Loretta's breakfast, not enough for 2. He closed the cabinet, skipped breakfast, grabbed his keys, and walked out into the dark. 7 a.m., Patterson's Auto Body. Henry was the first one in, always was. The shop was small, 4 lifts, a paint booth that smelled like chemicals, and a radio that only played gospel or static depending on the weather. Henry had worked here since he left active duty 2 years ago. He was the best mechanic in the building, paid the least. He never complained, not once. By 9 o'clock, a woman pulled in with a minivan, brake light out, 2 kids in the back seat, and an apology already forming on her lips. I know it's small, but I can't afford... Give me 10 minutes. Henry waved her off, popped the housing, swapped the bulb, done. She reached for her wallet. He shook his head. It's a $2 bulb. Don't worry about it. She drove away. His co-worker, a guy named Tommy, leaned against the lift and shook his head. Griff, you keep doing that, you'll be broke forever. Henry didn't look up from the engine he was working on. Already am. Might as well be broke and useful. Tommy laughed. Henry didn't. It wasn't a joke, it was just the truth. 12:30 p.m., lunch break. Henry sat in his truck in the parking lot, engine off, windows down, a legal pad open on the steering wheel. He sketched the same thing he'd been sketching for 3 years, floor plans, room layouts, a sign above the door that read Griffin Community Mentorship Center, tutoring rooms, a computer lab, a small gym, a kitchen where kids could learn to cook a real meal. He'd drawn it all, every corner, every detail. He had a list of volunteers. Pastor James Wilson at his church had already committed the food pantry as a partner. The neighborhood needed this. Everyone said so. But nobody said so with money. Henry flipped to the first page of the pad. There, in his mother's handwriting, copied from a note she'd left him before she died, were the words he read every single day. If you can't feed 100 people, feed one. He stared at it, ran his thumb across the ink, then he closed the pad, put it in the glove box. Went back to work. The dream was still there. It just felt far away today, like it did most days. That's who Henry Griffin was at 12:30 on a Tuesday afternoon. Broke, tired, hungry, running on coffee and stubbornness. A man with $38, a legal pad full of dreams, and a grandmother who needed him to hold it all together. And in less than 3 hours, he'd walk into a pawn shop on Jefferson Avenue and give every cent of it to a stranger. But what happened after that? That's where this story really begins. Now, the old man at the pawn shop counter. You saw him, trembling hands, soaking wet, sliding a purple heart across the glass like it meant nothing, but that metal meant everything. And to understand why he was willing to sell it, you need to see what that morning looked like for him. 7 a.m. A rented room above a hardware store, 3 miles across town from Henry. Walter Barrett woke up on a military cot. No alarm, no phone. He hadn't owned a phone in 11 months. The room was barely a room. A cot, a duffel bag, a folding chair, a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling with a pull string. The kind of place where silence isn't peace, it's weight. On the shelf, a shoebox. That shoebox was the only thing Walter Barrett had left in this world. He opened it the way a man opens a coffin, slowly, with reverence and dread. Inside, his purple heart, his silver star, a photograph of a woman with kind eyes and silver hair. Helen, his wife, the love of 51 years. And beneath all of it, a faded ID badge. The photo was 10 years old. The man in it wore a tailored suit and a steady gaze. The text read, Walter T. Barrett, co-founder Ironclad Security Group. He didn't look at the badge. He never looked at the badge. He closed the box. Walter hadn't eaten in 2 days. His stomach had stopped growling sometime yesterday. That's the thing about hunger. After a while, your body just gives up asking. He sat on the edge of the cot and picked up the photograph of Helen, held it with both hands. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm out of moves. Let me tell you about Helen. She got the diagnosis 20 months ago. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The kind where the doctor doesn't say, we'll fight this. The kind where the doctor says, let's talk about comfort. Walter didn't accept comfort. He accepted war. He spent everything, every personal dollar. Experimental treatments in Houston, specialists in New York, a hospice room with a window facing a garden because Helen loved gardens. But here's the thing. Walter never touched Ironclad's money, not 1 cent. That company employed 3,000 people. Their families depended on it. He wouldn't drain the well to save his own house. That was the seal in him. Mission first, always. Helen died on a Sunday morning, quietly, holding his hand, and something in Walter died with her. Within 2 weeks, he signed a power of attorney document, transferred full operational control of Ironclad Security Group, a $580 million company, to his partner and best friend, Ray Connors. Then he disappeared. No phone, no address, no contact. He pulled cash from his last personal account, a few thousand, and vanished into Norfolk like a ghost. Because that's what SEALs do. When they don't want to be found, they aren't. Ray searched. He hired investigators. He put security teams on the ground. For over a year, nothing. Walter didn't want to be saved. He wanted to be invisible. But hunger doesn't care about your plans. 10:45 a.m., Tuesday. Walter stood in front of the mirror in the tiny bathroom. He barely recognized himself. 60 pounds lighter than the man in that ID badge. Cheekbones sharp enough to cut glass, a faded jacket, olive green, worn at the elbows, with a patch on the shoulder so deteriorated you could barely make out the letters. But if you looked closely, really closely, you'd see it. Ironclad Security Group. He zipped the jacket, put the Purple Heart in his pocket, left the silver star in the box. He walked 4 blocks in the rain to Gil Swanson's pawn shop. Every step was a negotiation between pride and survival. Pride said, turn around. Survival said, keep walking. Survival won. It usually does. He pushed open the door. The bell chimed. The shop smelled like dust and old leather. A Confederate flag bumper sticker sat crooked on the register. Walter clocked it, filed it, moved on. He'd survived worse rooms. He placed the metal on the glass. And that's when he heard a voice from the back of the shop. A young man, black, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing work boots stained with motor oil and a USMC ring on his right hand. Henry Griffin had walked in 2 minutes earlier to pawn his late mother's watch, the only thing of value he had left. Because Loretta's insulin was due in 4 days and $38 wasn't going to cover it. He came to sell the last piece of his mother. Instead, he saved a stranger's Purple Heart and walked out with nothing. But what happened next, in the parking lot, in the rain, between 2 men who had every reason to walk away from each other, is where this story truly begins. Now, here's the part that gets me. Because what Henry did inside the pawn shop, that was instinct. That was a 5-second decision. What he did after? That was a choice. A slow, deliberate, costly choice. And it started in the parking lot. 11:15 a.m., parking lot, Gil Swanson's pawn shop. Rain was coming down sideways. Henry pushed through the door and walked to his truck, a 2009 F-150 with a cracked windshield and 200,000 miles of hard living on the odometer. He climbed in, turned the key. The engine coughed twice before catching. He sat there for a second, staring at the empty space in his wallet where $38 used to be. No grocery money, no prescription money, no gas money after tomorrow. He exhaled, pressed his forehead against the steering wheel. You just gave away everything you had, Griff, for a man you don't even know. He almost laughed, because it was ridiculous. It was stupid. It was exactly the kind of thing his mother would have done. Then he looked up. Walter Barrett was standing at the edge of the parking lot. No umbrella, no car, just an old man in a soaked jacket holding a Purple Heart in one hand and 40 crumpled dollars in the other, staring at the street like he'd forgotten which direction home was. The rain hammered down on him. He didn't move. Henry watched for 5 seconds. 10. 15. Don't do it, Griff. You already did enough. You got nothing left to give. He opened the truck door. Sir! Hey, sir! Walter turned. Those blue eyes again. Guarded. Suspicious. The eyes of a man who'd spent his whole life reading threats. And right now, he was reading Henry. Where are you headed? Walter gave a vague wave down the road. Few blocks east. It was more than a few blocks. Henry could tell from the way Walter's legs were shaking. The man hadn't eaten in days. He could barely stand. Get in the truck. Son, you've done enough. And you're standing in the rain looking like you're about to fall over. Get in the truck. That's not a request. A beat. Walter's jaw worked like he was chewing on his pride, trying to swallow it. He looked at the rain. Looked at Henry's truck, looked at the metal in his hand. He got in. They drove in silence for the first 2 minutes, just the sound of the wipers and the rain hammering the roof. Henry glanced over, watched the way Walter sat, spine straight, shoulders square, even soaking wet and half-starved, The man sat like he was still in a briefing room, like his body hadn't gotten the memo that the mission was over. Parade rest, even in a pickup truck. And the way he scanned, eyes checking the side mirrors every few seconds, head turning slightly at intersections, cataloging every vehicle behind them. Not paranoid, trained. The kind of awareness you can't turn off because it's been drilled into your bones. Henry noticed something else. When a car behind them honked at a red light, Walter's hand shot to the door handle, grip tight, knuckles white, just for a second. Then it released. Henry said nothing. He recognized it. He'd seen it in guys from his unit. The body remembers things the mouth won't talk about. "When did you get out?" Henry asked, casual, easy. Walter stared ahead. "Define out." "Fair enough." More silence. Then Walter spoke, not to Henry, more to the windshield. 34 years, 5 deployments, 3 wars that had names, 2 that didn't. Henry nodded. "I did 4 years active, reserves now." "MOS?" "Motor T. You?" Walter almost smiled. Almost. "The kind they don't print on a DD-214. Copy that." And there it was, that word. Copy. Not okay, not got it. Copy. Henry filed it away without knowing why. It just felt like it belonged to a man who was more than what he appeared to be. Henry pulled off at the save right on Jefferson Avenue. "Wait here." "What are you—" "Just wait." Henry went inside. He had no money, but he had a face that the store manager, a woman named Pam, had known since he was 12 years old. He walked up to her, explained the situation in 15 seconds, and asked if he could pay her back Friday. Pam looked at him. "Henry Griffin, you've been paying things back your whole life. Go get what you need." He grabbed a basket. Bread, eggs, canned soup, bananas, a gallon of milk, nothing fancy, enough to keep a man alive for a week. He came back to the truck, put the bags on Walter's lap. Walter looked at the groceries, then at Henry. His lips pressed together, hard. "Why are you doing this?" Henry put the truck in drive. "Because someone did it for me once, when I was 11 and my grandma couldn't make rent. A stranger paid our light bill. I never found out who." He shrugged. "I figured I'd just keep passing it forward until the math works out." Walter said nothing for a long time. When they pulled up to the building, a run-down 2-story above a hardware store, Walter sat still for a moment. Then he reached inside his jacket. He didn't pull out money. He pulled out a brass challenge coin. Old, heavy, worn smooth at the edges. On one side, an insignia Henry didn't recognize, an eagle clutching a shield, letters beneath it. On the other side, an inscription. "Brotherhood has no expiration date. W.B." Walter placed it in Henry's palm. "Hang on to that, Marine. You earned it today." Henry turned the coin over, looked at the insignia. The letters were small, hard to read in the dim light. Ironclad Security Group. He didn't know what it meant. Not yet. "Thank you, sir." Walter nodded once, opened the door, disappeared into the building without looking back. Henry sat in the truck, rain on the windshield, an empty wallet, a coin from a stranger. He tucked it into his pocket and drove home. Henry went home that night thinking he'd just helped an old vet get through the week. That's it. That's all he thought it was. He had no idea what he'd actually set in motion. 6:30 p.m., Henry's apartment. He came through the door smelling like rain and motor oil. Loretta was in the kitchen, standing over the stove in her house slippers, stirring a pot of rice. The news played low on a small TV in the corner. She didn't turn around, didn't need to. "You're late." Stayed at the shop a little longer. "Mm-hmm." She glanced at the counter. One small bag, bread, bananas, that was it. She'd sent him out with a grocery list of 9 items. He came back with 2. She turned around now, slow, eyes sharp. Loretta Griffin didn't miss things. 69 years old, diabetic, bad knees, but her mind was a blade. Henry James Griffin. Full name, never a good sign. Yes, ma'am? Where are my groceries? Henry set down his keys. I'll go back Friday, after I get paid. That's 5 days from now. I know. And the money? Silence. You gave it away, didn't you? It wasn't a question. Loretta asked it the way a judge reads a verdict, already knowing the answer. Henry sat down at the kitchen table. There was this old man, Grandma, Navy SEAL, at the pawn shop. He was trying to sell his Purple Heart for grocery money. I couldn't. I know you couldn't. She shook her head, not angry, not disappointed, something else, recognition, like she was looking at her daughter's ghost sitting at the table. You're just like your mama. She'd give the coat off her back in a blizzard and walk home smiling. Henry pulled the challenge coin from his pocket, set it on the table. Loretta picked it up, turned it over in her fingers, squinted at the inscription. Brotherhood has no expiration date. WB. She ran her thumb over the insignia on the front, the eagle, the shield, the tiny letters she couldn't quite make out without her reading glasses. A man who carries something like this has a story, baby. You probably gave him more than groceries today. Henry took the coin back, held it for a moment, then placed it on his nightstand, right next to his mother's photograph and the folded flag. 3 objects on a shelf: a mother's memory, a nation's gratitude, and a stranger's coin. He didn't know yet that the third one was worth more than the other 2 combined. 2 days later, Thursday morning, Patterson's auto body. Henry showed up early, like always, but something was different. A plain white envelope was tucked under the shop's front door. No stamp, no return address, just 2 words written on the front in handwriting so precise it looked like calligraphy. The Marine. Henry opened it. Inside, 10 crisp $20 bills. $200, and a note on plain paper. For the groceries and the ride, you didn't have to. That's why it mattered. WB. Henry stared at the money. $200 would solve everything this week. Loretta's insulin, the truck payment, maybe even the electric bill. He folded the note, put it in his shirt pocket, and put the cash back in the envelope. After work, he drove to Walter's building, climbed the narrow staircase, knocked. Walter opened the door, surprised. His blue eyes scanned Henry up and down, the same tactical assessment even in a doorway. Henry held out the envelope. I appreciate this, sir. I really do, but I didn't help you for money. Son, I helped you because you're my brother, and we don't charge family. Walter studied him. A long, quiet moment, the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. Then something shifted behind those blue eyes, something old and deep. Respect. The kind you can't buy, the kind that's only earned. Walter took the envelope back, nodded slowly. Sit down, Marine. I'll make coffee. Henry stepped inside, and as he sat in the folding chair by the window, his eyes drifted to the shelf. The shoebox was open. Inside, the silver star, the photograph of Helen, and a faded ID badge with a familiar insignia, the same eagle, the same shield, the same tiny letters. Ironclad Security Group. Henry looked at it for half a second, then looked away. He didn't think much of it, not yet, but you should. Over the next few weeks, something started to shift. Henry didn't notice it, but you will. It started with the visits. Henry began stopping by Walter's place 2-3 times a week, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with leftovers Loretta packed in Tupperware, rice, stewed chicken, cornbread, sometimes with nothing but time. They'd sit, drink bad coffee from a dented percolator, talk. Walter told stories, old ones, vague ones. He'd mention missions without naming locations, teammates without using last names. He talked about Helen often, her laugh, the way she hummed in the kitchen, how she read the same novel every Christmas just because it reminded her of her mother. But he never mentioned ironclad, never mentioned money, never mentioned what he used to be. One evening, Henry brought his legal pad, showed Walter the floor plans for the mentorship center, the room layouts, the volunteer list, Pastor Wilson's commitment. Walter held the pad close to his face, studied it. Then he started asking questions. "What's your liability structure?" Henry blinked. "My what?" "Insurance. If a kid gets hurt on your property, who covers it?" "I haven't gotten that far." "What about your operating budget? First 3 years. You need runway, 12 months minimum before donations stabilize." Henry stared at him. "How do you know all this?" Walter handed the pad back. "I read a lot." He didn't read a lot. He'd built a company from a 2-room office to a $580 million empire. But Henry didn't know that. Not yet. Then there were the things Henry noticed, but didn't understand. The black Suburban. He saw it twice, once parked across the street from Walter's building on a Wednesday afternoon. Tinted windows, engine running, government contractor plates. The second time, outside the Save Right on a Saturday morning. Henry didn't think much of it. Norfolk was a military town. Black SUVs weren't unusual. But Walter noticed too. And when he did, he went quiet, pulled the curtain shut, changed the subject. Then there was the coin. Henry had started carrying it on his keychain. One afternoon at the grocery store, Denise, the cashier, spotted it while he was digging for his keys. "Hey, is that an ironclad coin?" Henry looked at her. "A what?" "Ironclad Security Group. My cousin does private security. She'd know that logo anywhere. Big defense contractor. Like, huge." Henry laughed. "The old man I got this from can barely afford canned soup." Denise shrugged. "Just saying. That logo's worth more than it looks." Henry pocketed the coin, shook his head. "No way. Impossible. A broke old man in a rented room above a hardware store? Not a chance." And then, on a Tuesday evening, everything Henry thought he knew about Walter Barrett fell apart. 6:15 p.m., Walter's building. Henry climbed the stairs with a brown bag in one hand, Loretta's leftover stew, cornbread wrapped in foil, enough for 2. He knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Nothing. He tried the handle. The door was open. Inside, Walter was on the floor. Not unconscious, but close. His back against the wall, legs stretched out, breathing shallow, skin the color of old paper. Henry dropped the bag, crossed the room in 3 steps, knelt down. "Sir." Hey, look at me." Walter's eyes opened, glassy, unfocused. Then, slowly, they found Henry's face. "Marine." "When's the last time you ate?" Walter didn't answer. That was answer enough. Henry's training kicked in. Check the airway. Check the pulse. Steady but weak. No visible injury. This wasn't a fall. This was starvation. Dehydration. A body shutting down because its owner had stopped caring for it. He grabbed a bottle of water from the bag, unscrewed the cap, held it to Walter's lips. Small sips. Slow. Walter drank, coughed, drank again. Henry reached for his phone. "I'm calling an ambulance." Walter's hand shot out, grabbed Henry's wrist. The grip was weak, but the fear in his eyes was not. "No hospitals." "Sir, you need no hospitals. They'll find me." Henry froze. "Who will find you?" Walter said nothing. His hand released. His eyes drifted to the window, to the street below, and for the first time, Henry saw something in the old SEAL's face that he'd never seen before. Fear. Not the physical kind. Walter had taken bullets and walked it off. This was different. This was the fear of a man running from something he couldn't fight, something he'd chosen to leave behind and couldn't bear to face again. Henry didn't push. He called Pastor Wilson instead. Together, over the next hour, they got Walter into bed, fed him the stew in small spoonfuls, got water into him, stabilized his breathing. By 9 o'clock, Walter was asleep. Breathing steady, color returning. Henry sat in the folding chair, watching, thinking. Who is going to find you, old man? What are you running from? He didn't plan to snoop, that's the truth. But he needed an emergency contact, a phone number, an ID, something, because the next time this happened, there might not be a next time. He opened the duffel bag first. Clothes, a razor, nothing useful. Then, the shoebox. He'd seen it before, the Purple Heart, the Silver Star, Helen's photograph. But this time, he reached deeper. Beneath the medals, beneath the photo, his fingers touched paper. He pulled it out, a folded document, legal-sized, dense with text and signatures. He opened it under the dim light bulb. His eyes moved across the words, slowly at first, then faster. Power of attorney, transfer of operational authority. Grantor, Walter T. Barrett, co-founder and chairman emeritus, Ironclad Security Group. Grantee, Raymond J. Connors, chief executive officer, Ironclad Security Group. Henry read it again, then a third time. Co-founder, chairman emeritus, Ironclad Security Group. His hands went still, completely still. He set the document down, pulled out his phone, opened the browser, typed 2 words, Ironclad Security. The results loaded in 3 seconds. Ironclad Security Group, America's premier private defense and security consulting firm. Government contracts across 14 nations. 3,000-plus employees. Estimated annual revenue, $580 million. Henry scrolled, found the Our Story page. A photograph from 2015. 2 men shaking hands at a Pentagon ceremony. Both in tailored suits. Both smiling. The caption, co-founders Walter Barrett and Ray Connors celebrate Ironclad's 500th government contract. The man on the left, Ray Connors, broad-shouldered, silver-haired, CEO. The man on the right, younger, healthier, 60 pounds heavier, but the jawline was the same, the posture was the same, and the eyes, sharp, blue, assessing, were exactly the same. Walter Barrett. Henry looked at the phone, then looked at the man sleeping on the cot. The man he'd been buying $4 canned soup for. The man who couldn't afford eggs. He sat down, slowly, like the floor had shifted beneath him. The challenge coin on his keychain, the patch on the jacket. Denise at the grocery store. That logo's worth more than it looks. Walter's questions about liability structures and operating budgets, the black Suburban circling the neighborhood, every clue, every sign, every detail he'd filed away without understanding. It all made sense now. The next morning, Walter was awake, sitting on the cot, stronger, the color back in his face. The stew and rest had done their work. Henry sat across from him, silent. He reached into his pocket and placed the challenge coin on the table between them. Then he spoke, quietly. Ironclad Security Group, you built it. The room went still. Walter looked at the coin, then at Henry. He didn't deny it. I built it with Ray, a long time ago. You're worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and you're living in this room, eating out of cans. Walter's voice was steady, flat, like he was reading a mission report about someone else's life. After Helen got sick, the bills, the treatments, the hospice, I used my own money. Not the company's. That was for the team, 3,000 people, their families. I wouldn't touch it. And when she died? A pause, long, heavy. I didn't want to be that man anymore. I just wanted to disappear. You almost disappeared permanently last night. Walter met his eyes. Maybe that was the plan. Henry leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice low but firm. Sir, with all due respect, that's not how SEALs operate, and it's not how Marines let their brothers go out. Walter's armor cracked. Not all at once, just a fracture. A hairline split in the wall he'd spent 18 months building. Your partner, Ray Connors, Henry said. He's still running Ironclad? Walter nodded. Then we're calling him. Henry, you saved lives your whole career. Let someone save yours. Walter stared at him. The sharp blue eyes weren't guarded anymore. They were tired. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. Then, barely audible, he whispered, Okay. Henry made one phone call that afternoon. He didn't know it yet, but that call would reach further than anything he could have imagined. 2:15 p.m., Wednesday. Henry sat on the steps outside Walter's building, phone in hand, heart pounding. He'd found the number online. Ironclad Security Group, main office, Washington, D.C. A woman answered on the second ring, professional, polished. Ironclad Security Group, how may I direct your call? I need to speak with Ray Connors. A pause. The kind of pause that tells you the name you just said carries weight. Mr. Connors doesn't take unsolicited calls. May I ask? Tell him Walter Barrett is alive, and he needs help. Silence. 3 seconds. 5, 10. Please hold. 40 seconds of hold music. Then a click. This is Ray Connors. The voice was deep, controlled, but underneath, something fragile. Something that had been waiting for this call for 18 months. Mr. Connors, my name is Henry Griffin. I'm a Marine reservist in Norfolk. I've been looking after a man named Walter Barrett. He collapsed yesterday. He's malnourished, dehydrated. Where is he? No small talk, no verification, just, where is he? Henry gave the address. Don't let him leave. I'm coming. The line went dead. Henry stared at his phone, hands shaking. He'd made a decision for a man who didn't want to be found. He'd broken Walter's trust to save Walter's life. He hoped it was the right call. 8:45 p.m., that same evening, a black sedan pulled up outside Walter's building. Behind it, a second vehicle with medical markings. Ray Connors stepped out. 62, silver-haired, suit that cost more than Henry's truck, shoes that probably covered Henry's rent. But his face wasn't a CEO's face right now. It was the face of a man who'd spent 18 months wondering if his best friend was dead. Henry met him at the door. Ray looked at him, took in the work boots, the oil-stained hands, the USMC ring. You're Henry Griffin. Yes, sir. Ray gripped his hand, held it an extra second. Thank you for not giving up on him. The reunion was quiet, no Hollywood embrace, just two old warriors standing 3 feet apart in a room that smelled like instant coffee and dust. Ray looked at Walter, the gaunt frame, the hollow cheeks, his jaw tightened, eyes went glassy. He blinked it away. You stubborn old... I know. 18 months, Walt. I had teams looking for you, investigators, former operators. They told me, if a SEAL doesn't want to be found, he won't be. I said, keep looking. Walter sat on the cot, eyes down. I wasn't ready, Ray. You could have called, one call. And said what? Helen's gone and I don't know how to be alive without her? Silence. Ray pulled the folding chair close, sat down, knee to knee. Yeah, Walt, that's exactly what you could have said. Ray's medical team came in quietly, examined Walter, started an IV, checked vitals. Ray arranged everything, a proper apartment, ongoing care, nutrition plan. Not charity, he insisted. Back pay. You built half this company. You're owed more than this. Through all of this, Henry stood by the door, watching, quiet. Walter was safe. Walter was found. That was enough. He reached for his jacket. Where do you think you're going? Ray's voice stopped him. Sir, this is family business. I don't want to... Sit down, Henry. Ray walked toward him. Walter told me everything. The pawn shop, the groceries, the rides, the refusal of money. He told me about your grandmother, your 2 jobs, your Marine service. A pause. And he told me about your mentorship center. Henry's stomach dropped. He said you've got floor plans on a legal pad, a volunteer list, a pastor ready to partner. He said you've got the heart of a leader and the brain of an operator. His words, not mine. Henry couldn't speak. Ironclad has a division, veteran and community programs, housing, job placement, mentorship. It was Walter's original vision before the defense contracts took over. That division has been underfunded and directionless for years, because the man who dreamed it up walked away. Ray looked at him. Steady. Direct. I need someone to run it. Henry shook his head. Mr. Connors, I fix cars for a living. I'm not... You saved my best friend's life with a bag of groceries and a refusal to quit. Don't tell me what you're not. Ray laid out the offer. Specific, concrete, not a fairy tale, a business proposition. Ironclad would fund the full build-out of Henry's mentorship center, a $1.2 million investment, renovated building, staffing budget for 3 years, scholarship pipeline for participants. Henry would be hired as director of the Ironclad Veterans and Community Initiative, $85,000 a year, full benefits. And, the part that broke Henry, Ironclad would establish the Helen Barrett Memorial Scholarship Fund, $50,000 a year for young people from underserved communities pursuing service careers, military, medical, teaching, first responders. Henry would sit on the selection committee. He looked at Walter. The old man sat on the edge of the cot, IV in his arm, eyes red but clear. Walter nodded. You earned it, Marine. Every bit. Henry's voice cracked. He didn't cry, but his eyes said everything. He extended his hand to Ray. Ray took it, then pulled him in. A handshake that became something else. The kind of embrace men allow themselves when words fail and pride steps aside. 3 men in a rented room above a hardware store, a SEAL who'd lost everything, a CEO who'd searched for 18 months, and a Marine who walked in with nothing and walked out carrying a dream that was finally real. And what happened next wasn't just about Henry. It was about every kid on his block who'd ever been told they'd never amount to anything. 3 months later, a ribbon-cutting ceremony on a Saturday morning in Norfolk. Sunny, warm, the kind of day that feels like the universe is paying attention. The building used to be an abandoned warehouse on Miller Street, broken windows, graffiti on the walls, the kind of place people crossed the street to avoid. Now, a freshly painted sign hung above the front door. Griffin Community Mentorship Center. Tutoring rooms with new desks, a computer lab with 20 stations, a small gym with a boxing ring, a kitchen, a real kitchen, where kids could learn to cook a meal that didn't come from a microwave. Everything Henry had sketched on that legal pad in his truck. Every room, every detail, real now, brick and mortar and glass. Henry stood at the podium, nervous, more comfortable under a car hood than behind a microphone. He kept it short. This building isn't mine. It belongs to every kid who walks through that door and decides they're worth something. That's it. That's all I got. The crowd clapped. Loretta cried. Pastor Wilson said amen loud enough for the whole block to hear. The local news ran it first. Marine's act of kindness sparks millionaires' comeback and a community's revival. Then the regional outlets picked it up, then the national ones. CNN ran a 3-minute segment. The headline crawl read, $38 that changed 2 lives. Henry did one interview, just one. A local reporter asked him how it felt to go from fixing cars to running a $1 million community center. Henry thought about it. Feels the same, honestly. I'm still just fixing things, different tools. The reporter asked if he had a message for people watching. Yeah. Next time you see someone counting coins at a register, don't look away. That clip went viral. 2 million views in a week. The ripple effects. They started small, then they didn't. Loretta's health improved first. Ironclad's benefits package gave Henry proper insurance for the first time in his life. Full coverage. Her diabetes management, medications, specialist visits, dietary support, all covered. She stopped rationing insulin, started sleeping through the night. She volunteered at the center 3 days a week. Ran a reading group for the younger kids, called it Miss Loretta's Story Hour. The kids fought over who got to sit closest to her. Pastor Wilson's food pantry partnered with the center, doubled its reach. Families that used to drive 40 minutes for a food bank now walked 3 blocks. Walter moved into a proper apartment 2 streets from the center, clean, warm, a kitchen with a stove that worked. He volunteered twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, teaching discipline, resilience, and life skills to the teenagers. The kids called him Chief. He pretended to hate it. He didn't. One afternoon, a 15-year-old named Devin, quiet kid, anger issues, 3 school suspensions, sat in Walter's session with his arms crossed and his jaw locked. Walter looked at him. "You remind me of someone." "Who?" "Me. At your age. Angry at everything. Didn't know why." Devin uncrossed his arms, slowly. That was the beginning. 6 months later, Devin made the honor roll for the first time in his life. He wrote Walter a note that said, "Thank you for not giving up on me, Chief." Walter kept it in his shoebox, next to Helen's photograph. The Helen Barrett Memorial Scholarship. First round, 6 recipients. A young woman named Keisha from Henry's neighborhood enrolled in a nursing program. A 19-year-old named Travis started EMT training. 4 others, teaching, social work, military service. $50,000 a year, lives redirected, futures rewritten. And then, the moment that broke the internet. Someone at the center, nobody knows who, filmed a 30-second clip of Walter and Henry in the gym, sparring, lightly. Walter, 73 years old, IV bruise still on his arm, moving like a man half his age. Shuffling, jabbing, grinning. Henry laughing, hands up, backing away. Chief, chill. I said light sparring." The clip hit 4 million views in 48 hours. The comments section became a flood. Veterans sharing their own stories, people donating to the scholarship fund, communities across the country asking how to replicate the model. Henry's old boss at the auto body shop hung a framed photo of him behind the register. Below it, a handwritten sign. "He fixed cars here, now he fixes futures." And Denise, the cashier who recognized the Ironclad logo on the coin, received a personal thank you card from Ray Connors. Inside, a $5,000 bonus for being, in Ray's words, an accidental intelligence asset. She framed it, hung it right next to her Employee of the Month certificate. She said it looked better. But the part of this story that stays with me, it isn't the money, it isn't the center, it isn't the scholarship or the news coverage or the viral clip. It's what happened on a rainy Tuesday, 6 months later. 5:48 p.m. Save Right grocery store, Jefferson Avenue. Henry was leaving the center after a long day. 12 hours. Budget meetings in the morning. Mentorship sessions in the afternoon. Devin's honor roll celebration at 3. A call with Ray about next year's expansion at 4. He was tired. The good kind of tired. It was raining. Same kind of gray, cold rain as the day he met Walter. The sky looked exactly the same. Even the parking lot puddles hit the same way. He stopped at the Save Right for milk. Loretta was making cobbler tonight, her first one since the new kitchen got installed at the center. She needed whole milk, not 2%. She'd been very specific. He grabbed the gallon, got in line, and then he saw her. A young woman, early 20s, scrubs, the kind nurses wear during clinicals, hair pulled back, dark circles under her eyes, a baby on her hip and a toddler gripping her pant leg. She was counting coins on the counter, slowly. carefully. The way people count when they already know they don't have enough but need to finish the ritual anyway. Her items: formula, diapers, bread, a small jar of baby food. She came up short. Henry could see it on her face, that tightening behind the eyes, the math not working, the shame creeping in. She reached for the bread, started to put it back. Henry stepped forward. "Ring hers up with mine." The woman turned, surprised, embarrassed, eyes already wet. "Sir, you don't have to—" Henry smiled, the same calm, steady smile he'd given Walter in a pawn shop a lifetime ago. "Someone did this for me once. Told me brotherhood has no expiration date. I figure that goes for sisterhood, too." She couldn't speak. She just nodded, whispered, "Thank you." Henry paid, carried her bags to her car, came back inside for his milk. Denise was at the register, same Denise. She didn't say anything, just shook her head and smiled. Some things don't need words. That evening, Henry came home. On the kitchen table, a small package, delivered by courier, no return address. He opened it. Inside, a mahogany shadow box, velvet lining, and behind the glass, a purple heart medal. The same one. Walter's. A note tucked beneath it, that same precise handwriting. "Marine, I got this back from Gil's shop. Turns out, some things aren't meant to be sold. They're meant to be passed on. This belongs to you now. Not because you fought in a war, because you fought for a stranger. And that takes a different kind of courage. W.B." Henry held the shadow box for a long time. Then he placed it on the shelf, next to the challenge coin, next to his mother's photograph, next to the folded flag. 4 objects in a row. A mother's memory, a nation's gratitude, a brother's coin, and a warrior's heart. A shelf that told the whole story of a man's life. And somewhere across town, in a warm apartment 2 blocks from a mentorship center that didn't exist a year ago, an old Navy SEAL sat by the window, watching the rain, drinking coffee, smiling. For the first time in 18 months, Walter Barrett didn't want to disappear. He wanted to stay.